Here are 50 amazing facts to blow your mind. Kim Il-sung, founder of North Korea, was raised in a Presbyterian Christian family, with his grandfather being a minister and his father being an elder in the church. There's an annual World Snail Racing Championship since the 1960s, and the most recent winner was named Bilbo Sluggins. The movie Land Before Time was planned to have no dialogue. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas wanted the film to be similar to The Rite of Spring in Disney's Fantasia, but the idea was abandoned to make the film appealing to children. Hasekura Tsuninaga was in all likelihood the first Japanese to cross the Atlantic. He set sail from Sukinura, traveled overland through Mexico, then sailed to Europe where he visited Spain, popped briefly to France, and traveled to Rome for an audience with the Pope in 1615. Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys, the Bobbsey Twins, and several other children's mystery books all had the same publisher, Stratemeyer Syndicate, and all of them were largely authored pseudonymously. A Catholic priest invented the Big Bang Theory. The variability hypothesis is the hypothesis that human males generally display greater variability in traits than human females do. Sex differences in variability have been observed in many physical abilities and traits, including physical, psychological, and genetic ones. Pencils were invented after a massive deposit of solid graphite were discovered in England. It was the only place in the world with pieces large enough to cut into solid rods. England's monopolies over these led other countries to smuggle graphite and recycle graphite powder. Edward Craven Walker, the inventor of the lava lamp, was a pioneer in naturism in film. He got around censors by not showing certain parts of the body and directed the first naturist film to receive public release in the UK. Baseball player Rickey Henderson referred to himself in the third person. Reporter Tom Verducci claimed that during one offseason, Henderson called Padres general manager Kevin Towers and left the following message. "Kevin, this is Ricky. Calling on behalf of Ricky. Ricky wants to play baseball." Rabies causes excessive saliva production while triggering hydrophobia to prevent saliva dilution while swallowing, therefore maximizing its spread. The Grumyko Commission, which, although there was widespread support for Crimean Tatars to return to their homeland, the commission decided that there was no basis for the Crimean Tatars' return to their homeland. The Rosetta Stone, which is used to learn to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphics, contained text about tax exemptions for temples and priests. The Australian federal police origins are traced back to a prime minister being struck by a thrown egg and his unhappiness with the state police response. The Egypt national cricket team was active between 1909 and World War II, and it was a team of expats and soldiers stationed in Egypt, with only a single native Egyptian playing for it. MC Hammer was a true gangster and other rappers feared him. He would threaten and put out hits on other rappers who he felt discredited him or his family. There's a panda in China called Hua Hua, whose popularity caused increased amounts of tourism in the Chengdu Panda Base, with tourists waiting hours to simply get a glimpse. In addition, she had developmental delays, which makes her fluffy and extra round. China did not issue birth certificates prior to 1996. Before that, births had to be registered in the Yuko-U, or Household Registration System. North Town Hall in Chelmsford, Massachusetts was built in 1853 and served as the town's community center for everything from graduations to proms to polling. It now thrives again as a restored National Register listed community hub. When Uranus was being named, astronomer Johann Elert Bode proposed it as the Latinized version of the Greek god Uranos. However, he was apparently unaware that Uranus was only the Latinized form of the deity's name and that the Roman equivalent was Kylus. In 1987, during KNBC's Channel 4 News in LA, Gary Stolman got into NBC's Burbank studios as a guest of a former employee and took David Horowitz hostage live on air. With a weapon pressed to his side, Horowitz calmly read his statements about the CIA and mental health hospitals on camera. Sophie de Marbois-Lebrun, the eccentric Duchess of Plaisance, when her teenage daughter died, she had embalmed and placed her in the basement of her manor. When the manor caught fire, she offered a large amount of cash to anyone willing to venture into the burning basement and save her. A flamingo escaped captivity in 1988, found refuge in the Great Salt Lake, and lived wild in Utah for almost 20 years. When infamous fraudster Bernie Madoff died, he was cremated contrary to Jewish tradition, and his family refused to claim his ashes, so they are currently sitting in a lawyer's office. North Korea's main export is fake hair. The value of a taxi medallion, which is the permit allowing a taxi cab to operate in New York City, peaked in 2013 at over $1 million. By 2019, medallions were being sold for as low as $136,000. Since many cab drivers took out loans to buy when the values were high, many have been forced to declare bankruptcy. The original version of the Pinocchio story concluded with the puppet's execution. In 2011, a first-aid topical gel was developed from snake venom to drastically reduce bleeding by triggering coagulation in under 60 seconds. There's a tiny hole in your eyes that drains tears to your nose, causing a runny nose when you cry. Apollo Quibolay, a Filipino pastor who declared himself the appointed son of God and owner of the universe, was wanted by the FBI for bad stuff trafficking and human rights abuses. The Laconia incident was where a German U-boat sunk the RMS Laconia, a British passenger liner. When it was rescuing survivors and towing them to a French handover, it was attacked by a US B-24 and led to the Kriegsmarine no longer assisting ships they sunk for the rest of the war. The officer Donald Eugene Webb was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list for longer than anyone else at the time and was never captured. Turns out the reason for that is his wife was secretly hiding him at her own house after he died and buried him on the property. The crime drop was a pattern observed in many countries whereby rates of many types of crime declined by 50% or more beginning in the mid to late 1980s and early 1990s. There's no universally accepted explanation for why crime rates are falling. Vatican Taekwondo, the governing body for Taekwondo in the Vatican, has no registered athletes or coaches. Passenger aircraft have drain mast. They're heated pipes that safely discharge wastewater like condensation, galley drains, and lavatory overflow outside the plane without freezing midair. On the 20th of July 1970, locals in New Jersey saved Lucy the elephant, a 6-story, 60-foot, 90-ton wooden landmark, by moving her 2 blocks. Built in 1882, she served as a tavern, cottage, office, and restaurant, as well as an Airbnb. Lucy remains the oldest surviving roadside tourist attraction in America. Glenn Campbell had such an incredible falsetto that in 1964 he was hired as Brian Wilson's touring replacement in the Beach Boys after Brian had a nervous breakdown and withdrew at the last minute. The Holy See isn't just a name for Vatican City, it's also the name for the government of the Vatican. The Holy See is sovereign on its own, giving the illusion that the Holy See and Vatican City are 2 separate countries. A study found that more than 60% of US smokers unsuccessfully try to stop smoking almost every year. Baseball player Rickey Henderson got frostbite in August. The injury was due to him leaving an ice pack on his foot for too long. Pacific Ocean prawns mature as males, then transition to females, though a very few are female from birth. 32 US states have a state beverage and 20 of them are milk. The iron oxide in some colors of tattoo inks, black or brown, can cause burn-like injuries to the skin of people getting an MRI scan. Walt Disney's last words were Kurt Russell. One of Niccolo Machiavelli's many talents was improvised songwriting. His friends would try to challenge his rhyming skills by opening a random page of any random Latin poet and asking him to translate and turn it into a song. And almost every time he was able to do it on the spot while playing the lira. Montevideo, the capital city of Uruguay's full name is Ciudad de San Felipe Santiago de Montevideo. William Mullins was the only one to lead a fully intact unit of the 51st Division to escape France in June of 1940. He led about 160 men to the beach under heavy fire for 6 miles and on the way captured a village with only revolvers. The Germans assumed it was a strong counterattack and fled the village. A fringe rationalist death cult in the Bay Area, whose members were talented data scientists from NASA, Google, and Oxford, faked their leaders drowning, lived in box trucks armed with samurai swords, and are now linked to as many as 6 deaths across multiple states. The BBC broadcast coded messages to British secret agents behind enemy lines during World War II. Sea otters influence the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere by controlling population of sea urchins that in turn eat kelp. Annually, kelp forests store an equivalent of yearly emission of 4 million passenger cars. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, leave a like on it, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.